Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Sam from Yankees Post here, and I think we need to have a conversation about George Lombard Jr. because I honestly think there's a chance we're watching the beginning of the next Yankee star right in front of us. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. We've seen this before. A young prospect gets called up, has a couple really good games, Yankees fans get excited, and suddenly everybody starts talking about how this guy's going to be a superstar. And I completely understand that reaction because 5 games is obviously like nowhere near enough to know what he's going to be and ultimately he's going to become, but there's going to be a point where major league pitchers like adjust to him. There's going to be stretches where he struggles, and there's going to be a lot still that he needs to learn. But even with that being said, I think there are enough things about Lombard's game right now to make the excitement completely justified, especially when you consider how highly the Yankees have thought of him throughout his development. This was their number one prospect for a reason. Before getting called up, Lombard was hitting .268 with a .405 on base percentage, a .440 slugging percentage, and .845 OPS in 56 games in AAA. He had 6 home runs, 21 RBIs, and after coming back from a finger injury, which probably delayed and messed things up a little bit for him. I mean, he still went on an incredible stretch where he hit .377 with a 1 OPS over 65 plate appearances. So when the Yankees finally decided to bring him up, this wasn't really like a situation where they were just throwing a kid into the lineup because they needed somebody to fill a spot. They obviously had Anthony Volpe up, and he wasn't performing. George Lombard has been performing and he'd been developing, and eventually the organization decided that the best thing for him was to see what he could do against major league pitching. And then, of course, he gets to New York and his first major league hit is a home run. I mean, come on. I feel like we've seen this so many times before with Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, Dominguez, I think Austin Wells too. So many of these Yankees prospects are just like homering in their first game when they get called up. But if you're George Lombard Jr., that's about as good of a start as you could possibly ask for. You're 21 years old. You're making your major league debut with the Yankees. You're playing shortstop in Yankee Stadium. And then you get your first career hit out of the way by putting a baseball over the fence. Obviously, the home run itself is fun, but what has actually made me more interested in Lombard is how comfortable he has looked playing the position. You can see why the Yankees were so high on his defense when you watch him at shortstop. He has the range to get to the balls that a lot of shortstops aren't going to reach. His arm is strong enough to make throws from different angles, and he has the athleticism to recover when a play doesn't go exactly according to plan. Those are the kind of tools that can make somebody extremely valuable at shortstop, even before you get into what they could do offensively. And I think it's important when we're talking about Lombard's future because the offensive development doesn't have to happen overnight for him to become a really good player. If he could just continue to play defense at this level while gradually becoming a better hitter, the Yankees are already going to have somebody who can provide a ton of value for this team. The exciting part is that we're starting to see signs that the bat could eventually become a pretty significant part of his game as well. He's already hit 2 home runs in his first 5 games, which obviously isn't enough to tell us anything about what his eventual power numbers are going to look like, but you could watch the actual at-bats and see some things that are really encouraging. He's shown patience. He's shown that he could recognize pitches. And when he gets something that he can handle, he's capable of driving the ball with authority. That's like really what I'm watching with him right now. I'm not looking at 5 games and trying to figure out whether he's going to hit 25 home runs next season. That's impossible. I'm much more interested in whether the underlying approach looks like something that could eventually translate into consistent major league production. So yeah, so far I like what I'm seeing. There are obviously going to be plenty of nights where he doesn't get a hit. I think he just went 0 for 4 and didn't get a hit for like the first time in his 5th game. But he's eventually going to go through a stretch where pitchers figure him out and, figure out how they want to attack him. And he's going to have to make adjustments like every MLB player ever. It's part of the process for, every young player who's come to the major leagues. But the good thing for Lombard is that he's 21 years old and he has plenty of time to figure those things out. That's actually what makes this whole situation so interesting to me. Think about where George Lombard Jr. could potentially be 2 or 3 years from now. He'll have thousands of major league plate appearances by then. Hopefully, he'll have faced the best pitchers in baseball multiple times. He'll have a much better understanding of just how teams are trying to attack him, and he'll have time to physically mature as well. So I think just having him up, because shortstop is obviously a need for the Yankees right now. But if the offensive side continues developing during this period of just trying to see where he's at, I feel like you could end up with a pretty good shortstop who's capable of giving you legitimate production at the plate while also being one of the better defensive players at his position. I think that's when the conversation changes from, this is really a promising prospect to this guy may actually be one of the stars of the Yankees. And I feel like right now, where the Yankees are at, that's exactly what they need, especially at the shortstop position. I feel like there's been a lot of uncertainty around the middle infield over the last few years, and they just need someone that could be there. You could just pencil them in every game, and you don't got to worry about setting them up and down all the time. So the Yankees have obviously invested a lot into Anthony Volpe, and there's been periods where it looked like he could potentially be the long-term answer at shortstop. I definitely thought that, but with Lombard now getting his opportunity, obviously Volpe was sent down. The organization has another young player who could potentially establish himself as an everyday player for a very long time. I'm not saying Lombard is guaranteed to take over the position permanently, because that's not something we can know yet, but he still has to prove it, that he could handle the major league pitching over a full season. And yeah, eventually teams are just going to have a way better scouting report on him. But that's why, I love what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball. Doesn't really matter for me right now what he does offensively, but it's definitely a plus. We're getting to see the beginning of this process rather than watching somebody who's already established. And, there's just something about Lombard's game that makes me think his ceiling is really high. Obviously, he's the number one prospect for the Yankees, but the combination of his age, athleticism, defensive ability, and the offensive flashes we've already seen gives the Yankees a pretty interesting foundation to work with. If the power continues to develop and, the plate approach continues to mature, I don't think it's unreasonable to start talking about him as a potential all-star down the road. I don't know exactly what his defensive stats have been in the first 5 games, but I mean, if you just watch the plays that he's made, I think there's been 4 or 5 different highlights, which is an amazing thing to see for a shortstop with the Yankees, because we haven't really seen that at all in the past couple of years. So yeah, if everything really clicks, I think there's obviously a path to something even bigger than that. And that's the part I think that just gets me the most excited about him. We don't have to decide right now whether he's going to be a superstar. We don't need to look at 5 games and make some ridiculous prediction about what his career is going to be. But I think we could just recognize that the Yankees have a 21-year-old shortstop. That's their number one prospect. He's performed pretty good in AAA, obviously had some injuries, was able to get a promotion, and he just looks so comfortable in the major league so far. And I think everybody in the MLB, all fans, should be paying attention to this. But yeah, for a team that's dealt with so many questions this season, having a young player like that come up just gives the fan base something to get excited about, because the Yankees are so injured right now and these games are very important for them. So just having someone that we could plug in like this and bring the team some energy and, give you a reason to want to watch the games when Bellinger, Judge, Stanton, all these guys have been injured. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Maybe he becomes an all-star, maybe becomes one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. Or maybe he doesn't. We don't know yet, and that's okay. But I think that's what makes prospects fun. And after watching what he's done so far, I think it's completely fair to say that the Yankees might have something here. So yeah, very curious to hear what you guys think. What do you think his ceiling is? It's been 5 games so far, so obviously some of these takes are going to be very interesting. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications, because, if George Lombard Jr. really does become the player the Yankees believe he can be, we're going to be talking about this kid for a very, very long time. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.